What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers for UFC Vegas 87. We got Jairzinho Rozenstruik going against Shamil Gaziev. And yeah, it's a very interesting card here. We are back in the Apex. And right now, as of recording, we have 9 confirmed bouts. We've lost a couple fights the last 24 hours. We have, Dana White saying that Rosas and Tercios are fighting in the Apex for this card. Tercios, denying that he's going to fight. So right now it's 9 fights. I'm sure they're going to add some, but very interesting card, Weezy. Not too much to talk about tonight, but definitely looking forward to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It was a fun night last night. We both had good nights betting on the UFC. And then this card is going to be a fun one, but it's also just potentially littered with landmines. We both had good weeks last week, so I'm going to preach bankroll management this week because not only are we down to 9 fights, but it looks like there's probably going to have to be a couple of short notice replacements because, the UFC is dangerously close to that number of they need at least 7 fights on a card in order to get contractually paid out for their licensing agreement with the ESPN. So, and then one of these fights has Matt Schnell in it, and one of these fights has Alex Perez in it. These guys pull out more than Peter North in a feature porn film. So I don't know, man. I mean, this is getting very dangerous, and we're probably going to see a couple of late fights be made here and added to this card. So, if you're watching this on Tuesday or Wednesday, this card could look completely different by then. So, but I'm still fired up to break down these fights. There's some good ones here. There's some interesting young prospects on this card, and 2 guys that I always get mixed up, which is Vitor Petrino and the other Brazilian dude comes out with the hey, what the hell is his name?
Claudio
Ribeiro. I get those guys mixed up. And so it's going to be a very challenging mental week for your Uncle Weezy as well because of that. But it's a fun week of cards, of fights to break down. So I'm looking forward to chopping it up.
Yep, for sure. I mean, we're probably going to get some announcements either tonight or tomorrow. We're going to see if Ricky Tercios is actually going to fight this upcoming weekend. I checked his Instagram. I mean, it doesn't sound like he wants to fight Raul Rosas Jr. He was posting that basically that he already won the fight and he was sipping on a Coca-Cola, bragging that he won the fight. And the funny thing is about Ricky Tercios is I think he's generally being serious. I think he actually thinks he won the fight. And it doesn't sound like they're fighting, but we'll definitely see, and we'll get it confirmed hopefully in the next couple of days there. All right, before we get into the quick recap of UFC Mexico, if you guys could please do us a favor, leave a like on the video, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Me and Weezy go live every Sunday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, Weezy, me and you did it. We finally did it. We said we're going to do it. We were going to circle the wagons, and man, where the wagons circled last night, I think me and you combined for almost over 15 units. So yeah, go ahead and recap your night last night.
Yeah, I'm looking at my results right now here. It was up. I was up 7.27 units on my tracked bets. The losses for me were I took some shots on Chris Duncan to win in rounds 2 and 3. I had a half unit on him in round 2. I had a quarter unit on him in round 3. That obviously didn't cash as Torres subbed him in round number 1. I had Claudio Puelles to win by submission for a half unit at plus 350. That didn't cash, but he did a great job of grappling and winning minutes with the wrestling, the top control. He attempted some submissions, so it wasn't a terrible bet. And then I had Muhammad Naimov's money line parlayed up with Mateus Mendoza's money line. I got plus 140 on that, and I had 1.5 units on that. Really close fight there with the Mendoza Aguilar fight. It didn't go my way, so that was a 1.5 unit loss, a half unit loss on the Puelles sub prop, and 0.75 units of a loss on the Duncan second and third round props. But then we cashed on Brandon Royval winning by decision, 0.3 of a unit at plus 700. Cashed on the under 1.5 rounds for the Duncan Torres fight, 1.7 units to win 1. We cashed on fight goes to decision for Zellhuber Prado, which I got at plus 135 That line made no sense, so I jumped on that just because it was mispriced. It was a trifecta bet on my prop template, so I took that shot and it worked. Parlayed up. The fight doesn't go to decision at -200 for Yair versus Ortega, with the under 2.5 rounds in the Duncan Torres fight. 2 units there to win 1.57. I had 1 unit on the Altamirano plus 3.5 points handicap. I thought he won that fight, Brady. I thought he won
Yeah, he did.
second rounds very clearly. I was very surprised by the people saying that Dos Santos did more damage in the second round. I don't really agree with that. It's not like he ever had Altamirano hurt at any point in the second, I don't think. And he lost a lot of minutes in that round, but I was lucky, though. I didn't get greedy and go for the plus 240. I just took the 3.5 points handicap at plus 115. So that bet still cashed. And then I had Hani Barcelos to win by submission. That was the true wagon circler, Brady. That kind of like turned my night there. Half unit at plus 410 to win 2.05 units, up 7.27 units tracked. The ass shaving of the week, Muhammad Naimov got it done in less than a minute. The greasy 4-leg parlay, which I had a half unit on, that cashed at plus 683. So up another 3.4 units untracked, added to the 7.27 units tracked. We were the ones giving the Rogerings this week to the bookies. We were the ones with the bag of oranges, just beating those guys until we juice those oranges and then enjoy a cold glass of orange juice over their lifeless bodies. It was a lovely evening, Brady, and I know it was just as lovely for you.
Yeah, man, it felt good to finally circle these wagons. This whole month, it's been like I've been like right there, either like a half unit win, half unit loss, half unit win. I've been right there, like a couple plays away, a couple moments away from just having a big blow up night. This was the big blow up night. I kicked off the card with Muhammad Naimov, my biggest bet of the card, inside the distance, -135 for 2.5 units. Sweat free. Honestly, I was worried about that. You know why? Because this whole year, the plays that have been biting me were the plays I was laying juice on. And although I was super confident, I keep losing these plays where I'm laying chalk. And this was one that came through. I was happy it came through. That was big. Didn't have anything on the Felipe Dos Santos Altamirano fight, but I was looking at that plus 3.5 as well. I was also looking at maybe sprinkling that money line, which by the way, I don't know how they could even possibly think about scoring the fight for Felipe Dos Santos. I thought there were a couple bad decisions on the card, a couple bad scorecards. I thought that was probably the worst one. But the highlight of my night was actually in the Luis Rodriguez fight, Weezy. This was my favorite spot on the card. It was the first fight I taped. I looked at the lines and I saw Denis Bondar was a favorite against somebody in the UFC, and I see he's a favorite against Luis Rodriguez. I'm like, man, Luis Rodriguez must be a complete bum. I mean, how is Denis Bondar favored against anybody? And I go and watch Luis Rodriguez, and I was, I think my expectations were like really, really low. And I was actually, somewhat impressed with the guy. And yeah, there were a lot of people on Bondar, a lot of really sharp people on Bondar, and I get it. In terms of skill, I think that Bondar probably the more skilled fighter, but there's a lot of intangibles I liked on the Luis Rodriguez side. I mean, he was much, much younger, 24 years old. He took 8 months off. There was room for improvement. This was at high elevation. He was training in Mexico City the last 6 weeks. This is a guy that's going to have, more heart, more toughness, never been finished. And he showed that, man. He took some big shots from Bondar in the first round. And you could tell at the end of the first round, the momentum was all in favor of Luis Rodriguez. And then he ended up breaking Denis Bondar and finishing him in the second round. So I had 1 unit on Luis Rodriguez. And then I also had a plus 500 fight ends by submission. The reason being is I actually picked Rodriguez to win by sub, third round sub. And then also Bondar had like the highest submission rate on the card. And on top of that, I really liked the fight to finish. So the fight ends by sub at that price tag made no sense. So that was like plus 3.55 units right there on that fight. I also had Claudio Poyas by sub. If you would have told me Claudio Poyas was going to land 7 takedowns and control half the fight, I probably would have max bet that sub prop, but I thought it was a good bet. I thought he was sub or bust. Was not expecting him to get 7 takedowns. I was happy with that bet. I had the Charez Lacerda fight ends by sub plus 160. I also had Charez late sprinkles. Lacerda got finished in round 1, so cashed the fight ends by sub. Did not cash those sprinkles. I had the Aguilar-Mendonce fight ends by sub, plus 150. The fight played out on the mat for over 13 minutes, multiple submission attempts on either side. I also sprinkled the Aguilar round 2, round 3. I thought he was going to get that guillotine in the third. It was there. That would have been a massive hit. Almost had it. But yeah, shout out to Mendonce. His cardio looked a lot better than I expected. And his fight IQ still looked kind of questionable, but it was a lot better than I expected as well. But yeah, I didn't mind those shots also. This was the big one as well. I had the under 2.5 rounds in the Barcelos-Quinones fight. I bet it actually on the show last week, Stat Diggers, where it was plus 100. And it just didn't make a ton of sense. And it almost lost. There was, I think, like 20-something seconds left. Barcelos gets a takedown, takes the back. And quickly after rear naked chokes, Christian Quinones cashing a plus 480 submission prop. And I called you, Weezy, and I said, the wagons have been circled. The wagons have finally been circled. There you go. Shout out to Hani Barcelos, man. And then I had the fight won't start round 2 in the Torres Duncan fight, minus 110 for 1.5 units. That probably should have been a much bigger bet. I mean, Torres, 15 of 16 of his fights finished in round 1. And you could tell within the first 10 seconds that fight was finishing before the second round started. And then also lost on some Duncan late sprinkles there. I think my worst bet of the night was Yasmin Jairzinho, Sam Hughes. The fight doesn't go with the Yasmin late sprinkles. The fight played out exactly how I thought it would outside of a finish. Sam Hughes just showed a ton of toughness, but Jairzinho looked really good. I think she's a really good fighter as long as her durability can hold up going forward. And then I had a play on Raul Rosas Jr. and that fight got scrapped. It was like 5 minutes before the fight was even going to start. So overall, ended up 6.12 units, and then untracked to hit a prelim parlay, a main card parlay, and a Hail Mary parlay. It wasn't 680 like yours; it was like 638, something like that. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
you had to one up me. You had to one up me as always. But yeah, it was a good night, man. It was a good night of fun fights. People were saying that card sucks. Like, I didn't think that card sucked. Did you?
No, man. I mean, obviously, Rosas Tercios not happening. That's a huge disappointment.
Yeah.
Whenever there's a fight that's supposed to happen once the fights start and it doesn't happen, that's always like a little bit of a kick in the pants. But other than that, I mean, I thought those were pretty good fights too. Seeing Ortega almost blow out his ankle in the warm up. And I was sitting there yelling, "Stop the fight! Don't let him fight and just cash my fight doesn't go here." That was wild.
Crazy.
To see him almost, like to turn his ankle there, and you're thinking, oh my God, did he just actually lose the fight before it even started? That would have been a first. I don't think I've ever seen something like that. Have you?
Not in the UFC, but there has been a couple fights where outside the UFC, somebody did hurt themselves pre-fight. I forget which one though, but I have seen it happen like once. Which is
I've never seen that. Sometimes in the celebrations after the fight, you'll see it, where you saw Johnny Walker hurt himself doing the worm, trying to break dance. Terrence McKinney jumping off the fence, blows out his knee. Remember that? I mean, sometimes that happens, but not before the fight. So that was really wild to see. Ortega, a hell of a performance at altitude against Yair Rodriguez in front of the Mexican crowd. That was a great fight.
Yeah, I thought it was an awesome card. Roy Val Moreno was fun. Ortega Rodriguez was fun. Zelhuber Prado was, I think, fight of the night. I think they got it. Torres Duncan, how could you not enjoy that? Barcelos Quinones was probably my favorite fight of the night. That fight was awesome. So, and then we got to see Daniel Lacerda lose for the 20th time. That was fun also. And I'm hoping they give him another 6-fight contract, maybe go 0-12 in the UFC. 12-1, my bad. Because I really am a big fan of Daniel Lacerda.
Dude, I want to see the Molina Lacerda rematch, because it's been a long time coming. We got to get Molina back in the UFC now. Hopefully those federal charges against him get dropped and we can see that rematch. That's the one that everybody wants to see, I think.
You know what I want to see? I want to see Daniel Lacerda and Denise Bondar versus Shannon Ross and Terrence Mitchell tag team match. What do you think? Losers leave town. 2v2 tag team.
Is only if you and I can do the commentary cage side. That is something that I think you and I could prepare some comedy material. It would be one of the best. It'll be like the opener for like a little person wrestling match,
That would be freaking awesome. But
Oh man, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
I would so be there for that.
We should be matchmakers. I mean, that would be incredible. But all right, we got to get into these fights here. I do want to shout out the Pub Sports Radio weekly Pick'ems contest. Don't forget to enter this week, guys. Go to pubsportsradio.com, check it out. Tapology type format, pick the winner, the round, the method, and yeah, check that out. All right, I say we get right into it, Weezy. So we have the Oliveira Gamori fight looks like it's off. Looks like Oliveira needs a new opponent, correct?
That's what I'm hearing. It doesn't seem to be any official word yet. What we're going on is Oliveira's camp saying that they heard from Gamori's camp that he was pulling out of the fight.
I mean, that sounds official to me.
Yeah, but why is it still? Why are there still props on Bet Online? Why is it still on the UFC stats website? Why is it still on Tapology's website? Those are three things that have me thinking that there's not an official word yet, and this still could be some kind of mental warfare being played. You never know, man. We don't have the most reliable media in this sport, Brady.
We don't. I mean, we got the Raul Rosas Jr. news like 2 minutes before he was supposed to fight. Nobody knew he was sick or nothing.
Yeah, but I mean, it's weird. So I don't want to waste our time breaking down that fight because it does kind of see. Even Marcel retweeted the announcement from MMA Fighting, where MMA Fighting is the one that dropped that nugget saying that they had heard from Oliveira's camp that Gamori was pulling out.
I mean, if Marcel retweeted it, I think we can move on then.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
All right, we'll move on then to Christian Leroy Duncan going against Claudio Ribeiro. Weezy, you're a big fan of Claudio Ribeiro, right?
I am. I do like him. I love the walkouts, man. The walkout on Dana White's Contender Series and on his debut. Huge fan. And I've been a huge fan of him. Also, like a bigger fan than I should be because I've gotten him mixed up with Vitor Petrino a couple of times, and Vitor Petrino is phenomenal. So at the times that I thought that Ribeiro was Petrino, I was like, man, this guy Ribeiro is going to be a menace, but he's 31, not 26 like Petrino, and he's a little bit lower level. He's like kind of like the Kmart version of Vitor Petrino at this point, but he's a fun fighter to watch.
Yeah, we're in the Apex, so we're going to be hearing all those "hey," which I like. I think they did that on purpose, because how can you not love it? But we got Christian Leroy Duncan going against Claudio Ribeiro. We got Duncan, 28 years old, 6'2" with a 79-inch reach. Ribeiro, 31 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. We got Duncan 3 years younger, 1-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Christian Leroy Duncan, he's 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Dusko Todorovic. Won that fight by injury, TKO, lost a decision to Armen Petrosian, and then beat the brakes off of poor Dennis Tuoluen, second-round knockout. As far as Claudio Ribeiro, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Abdulrazak Alassane, lost that fight by second-round knockout. Prior to that, he did have a first-round knockout win on the Contender Series. He beat Joseph Uglyman Holmes by second-round knockout, and then he lost to Roman Kopylov by second-round knockout. This should be a fun fight, man. I mean, Claudio Ribeiro, very long-ranging guy with a ton of power. But, yeah, Christian Leroy Duncan, I think this guy is super skilled. A lot of people were very hyped on this guy. When he was making his debut against Dusko Todorovic, he was a pretty big favorite there. Obviously, there was that injury. But, even at the Petrosian fight, a lot of people were really high on him in that matchup. And he kind of dropped the ball. And I think, people's thoughts on him kind of went down. People thought maybe he's not as good. And then he bounces back against Dennis Tuoluen, which is not saying much, but he did look really good in that matchup. I think the more skilled fighter is definitely Duncan here. He has a ton of tools on the feet. I think he can also maybe mix in takedowns, push the fight against the cage here. He's going to have the better cardio. But Ribeiro does hit very hard, so it should be an interesting fight. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's a real fun fight. With Leroy Duncan, you've got a guy that's got a lot of upside. He's still only 28 years old. He's got unusual height and length for the division. Very tricky at distance striking range. This guy can throw about 50 different techniques, and do it all properly. But the thing is that the fight IQ doesn't really seem to be there. I mean, that performance against Petrosian would have been hilarious if I didn't pick him to win and bet on him and make him the ass shaving of the week, because I felt like a moron after that fight, because when you have a 9-inch reach advantage against somebody and you throw 0 jabs and 0 teep kicks and just do nothing but spinning hook kicks from a mile away, hitting nothing but fresh air the entire fight, it's extremely, extremely frustrating. You cannot lay juice on guys that have horrible fight IQ. And Duncan really showed horrible fight IQ in that Petrosian performance. And then he got the big step down against Tialulin. And you got to take the Petrosian performance for what it is. Petrosian's awesome. He's a very tough opponent to come in and essentially make a debut against, because it wasn't a debut for him, but the Todorovic fight, Dushko got hurt, a couple of minutes into that fight, so we didn't really even get to see it play out. So the Petrosian fight, Christian Leroy Duncan's first loss as a professional. So, he learned a little bit something from that, and hopefully we see him start to learn how to win some minutes, Brady. I think that's going to be real important for him, because with his length, with his size, with his speed, and his striking technique, this guy shouldn't ever really have to grapple. It should be his opponents that force that, and he's got very good counter grappling. We saw that over and over and over again on the regional scene footage for Duncan. People being like, you know what, dude, I am not striking with this athletic freak. I'm going to take him down. And Duncan just stops, he'll get taken down, but he gets back up. He does good work in the clinch. He's got good anti-grappling and good takedown defense. So, and then he gets back to his feet and he just starts messing you up from range. And that was kind of like how we saw him going through the pro stuff that we saw after his amateur career, which is also very long, like the 23 fight amateur career this dude had as well. So he's very well-rounded. He's got great size for the division. He's still young, switches stances, 79-inch reach, 6'2", really explosive striking. With Ribeiro, you got a guy that's not as technical, but he's a moose, man. He's a big, strong man, and if he hits you, you're going to be feeling it. But, I mean, dude, look at him. Look at that 34% distance striking defense on Claudio Ribeiro, Brady. Look at that 49% distance striking defense on Christian Leroy Duncan. Unless these guys go out there and grapple a lot, I don't think we're going to see this one last that long, man. Both of these guys hit very hard, and both of them are piss poor defensively. I could see Christian Leroy Duncan throwing some dumb spinning shit from way out, and Ribeiro just stepping in and landing a big shot. And I could also obviously see Leroy Duncan kind of just picking this dude apart from range and countering the leg kicks that Ribeiro is going to be throwing with straight punches down the middle. I think Leroy Duncan gets this done, but he's a terrifying guy at this point in his career, Brady, to lay juice on. His wins are against an injured Dushko Todorovic and Denis Tialulin. That proves nothing at the UFC level, and he really did show negative fight IQ in the Petrosian fight. So this one kind of feels like a stay away, but I'm excited to see Christian Leroy Duncan. This is a guy I want to be watching. I think he's going to have fun fights, and he's explosive and flashy. So I think he's going to be a fun guy to watch.
I was just doing some counting. So what I was going to say is this fight is like a lot of fights on the card, right? Christian Leroy Duncan's a pretty big favorite. We have 7 favorites that are minus 200 or greater, and we have 9 fights. I mean, it's a very chalky card this week. And yeah, I mean, I just, minus 265. Do I think he's the much more skilled fighter? Yes. Do I think he has the better cardio, more tools in the feet? Yes, I do. But you mentioned the fight IQ, and Claudio Ribeiro does hit extremely hard. He hits very, very hard. So yeah, Christian Leroy Duncan, I think, should win, but minus 265. What are you going to do? The over-under set at 1.5 rounds, the over 1.5 plus 100, the under 1.5 minus 130. I don't really have a strong lean one way or another on the 1.5, but I do think this fight finishes. I'd be fairly surprised if this fight did go the full 15 minutes, because Ribeiro's been to decision like maybe once, right?
Yeah, dude, these guys have 20 combined wins, Brady, and 19 of them are finishes.
Yeah.
So, these these guys hit very hard. 11-2 to the KO is Ribeiro. 7-0 to the KO is Christian Leroy Duncan. So yeah, these guys are going to hit very hard. I figure it probably finishes under 1.5 rounds here. They're both finishers.
Does Claudio lie about his height? Caddy thinks he's 5'11".
Well, if he is, we're going to find out, because I think Christian Leroy Duncan might be more like 6'3", 6'4". He's 6'2". He's listed at 6'2", but God, I mean, he's just got freakish length. 79 inches, dude. A reach for a middleweight is big time.
Time to eat the chalk. I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see. We got to pick our spots. I don't know if I'm eating the chalk on Christian Leroy Duncan. I will pick him to win, though, and probably by knockout. We'll see where like the under 2.5 is. Maybe the fight ends by knockout. Could be interesting as well. So we'll see. All right. Moving on to the next fight. Speaking of big giant favorites, we have Javid Basharat. I think just surpassed like minus 600 today, taking on Aiemann Zahabi. We got Zahabi, 36 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. Basharat, 28 years old, 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. Basharat is going to be 8 years younger. He's going to have a 1-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Zahabi's 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A knockout loss to Ricardo Ramos, decision loss to Vince Morales, knockout win against Draco Rodriguez, decision win against Ricky Tercios, and then a knockout win against Richie Long. As far as Javid Basharat, he is 4-0-1 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Trevin Jones, won that fight by decision. Beat Tony Gravely by decision, beat Mateus Mendonça by decision, and then had that no contest against Victor Henry his last time out. So yeah, like I said, Basharat is now minus 625. Holy crap. And I mean, I get it. He should be a big favorite, but Zahabi's a tricky fighter. This is a guy that's extremely low volume, but just a ton of power. Multiple knockout wins in the UFC. But yeah, Javid probably should get it done, probably by decision as well, but minus 625, again, what are you going to do? I mean, a minus 625 favorite really doesn't add anything to a parlay. Maybe the decision prop, maybe, but I don't know. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's hard, right? Minus 625 that you're going to lay on a guy who doesn't have any finished wins at the UFC level. Aiemann Zahabi has been finished in one of his 2 losses as a pro. It was that spinning back elbow by Ricardo Ramos that caught him. And, you get caught with one of those, everybody goes down. That's a vicious technique. And if it lands properly, it doesn't really matter who you are. You're getting knocked out. So I think we've got 2 pretty durable guys here. But with Zahabi, what you wind up getting is a guy that's just this uncompromising counter striker, right? He will be as low volume as you let him be. If you give him nothing, he'll give you nothing in return. And it could be an extremely low volume fight where nothing happens. And my God, are you really going to lay minus 625 on the favorite in that fight when we know the kind of fights that Aiemann Zahabi is in? I mean, like, he made Ricky Tercios into a boring fighter.
Right.
And it was because he just refused to go first. That's all he does, that he refuses to go first. But if you make a mistake in the pocket against this guy, he's precise and he's powerful. He's 6-1 to the KO in his pro career. He's well coached and he's got very good fight IQ. His brother is Firas Zahabi, the head coach over at TriStar Gym. This kid's been a prospect since the very first fight he's ever had in MMA. One of Canada's brightest prospects on the regional scene. He just didn't fight much. You look at this guy, he's got an 11-year and 2-month career, and he's only got 12 professional fights. We're just kind of now seeing Aiemann at the age of 36 start to realize he needs to show a little bit of urgency and show up a little more often if he's going to get paid to do this. Because he's been doing this for over 11 years already. He's got to make some money doing it. And man, a win over Javid Basharat, Brady, that could put this guy in, could get him into a situation where he could get a 3-fight deal and make some serious money fighting some better guys in this bantamweight division, which is stacked full of top-notch opposition. So this could be a big win here for Aiemann, but he's 36 years old. He's 8 years older than Javid Basharat. And, Javid's done a nice job of wrestling, winning minutes with his wrestling. Aiemann just kind of wants to keep the fight standing, but he's a very efficient grappler. He's an uncompromising counter striker who's very precise and powerful. And he could be the kind of opponent that would make you feel just sick to your stomach watching a guy that you laid minus 625 on or parlayed up here at Basharat to get that win on the judges' scorecards, especially after the judging that we saw just yesterday, Brady.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like this has got to be dog or pass, right?
I mean, it's pass or pass for me. I don't think I've ever picked Zahabi in a fight ever, so I don't, it's not going to change here. I just don't like his style. Like, he's so low volume, he does nothing, but he does have a ton of power. He does have a couple knockouts. Javid's obviously never been knocked out. He's never been beat in general. What I might be taking a look at is maybe if like the Zahabi by knockouts like something crazy, then maybe. But other than that, it's a pass. I think it's probably Javid by decision. But like you said, 625 on a guy with like no finish. I don't think he's finishing Zahabi. Maybe the Zahabi finish only even could be interesting, but yeah, other than that, not too much interest in this fight. Definitely not parlaying Basharat at minus 625. This line's moved a ton. Like, yeah, I think it was yesterday. He was only minus 450. Now he's minus 625. So people are parlaying him up and moving that money line quite a bit.
Yes, they are. And I think that they're going to be nervous when they see this first round finish up, and it's going to be 3-2 on significant strikes in favor of Javid. And they're going to be like, oh boy, it's a wild fight, man. This is not something that I want to really have my money on. And let's not forget too that Javid Basharat had a 100% finish rate before he got to the UFC. This guy was known for being a finisher. And now he's kind of like, he's taking his time. He's a very smart fighter, and he's not going to put himself in bad defensive situations. And I think that's why he's winning minutes more than he's winning moments at the UFC level.
Yeah, great minute winner. We'll see if he can beat Zahabi and the judges, because you got to beat your opponent these days, and you have to beat the judges as well.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
All right, Weezy, should we even talk about this fight? Like, is this fight going to happen? Matt Schnell, are you going to fight? I mean, Matt Schnell has probably just as many pullouts as Alex Perez. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, dude. You know what we should do though? It looks like you missed the first fight of the night, which is the El Salwadi Rajabov fight.
Oh, okay. Okay,
yeah. So let's talk about that one before we get on to one of the fights that probably aren't going to happen because Matt Schnell is involved in it and Alex Perez is involved in it.
All right, so we'll talk about this, and then we'll make jokes about Matt Schnell pulling out of a ton of fights. Okay, so yeah, this fight should be fun, man. We got Abdul Karim Al-Sawadi going against Loik Rajabov. We got Al-Sawadi's 28 years old, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. Rajabov, he's 32 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. Al-Sawadi, 4 years younger, same height there, and he's gonna have a 1-inch reach advantage. Al-Sawadi's 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He was on the Contender Series as a really big underdog against George Hardwick, a guy that I think is really good, a guy in Hardwick who I think we'll see in the UFC in the very near future. And he pulled off a big upset. He looked incredible in that fight. Career best performance, honestly, out of Al-Sawadi. As far as Rajabov, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Esteban Ribovics, won that fight by decision, and then lost to Mateusz Rebecki going by knockout in the second round. So I was watching tape on Abdul Karim Al-Sawadi, and in pretty much every single fight, this is a guy that is getting his opponents down to the mat. Very good wrestler, very good control, very good cardio, really good ground and pound. He's a wrestler, but in that George Hardwick fight, he didn't really attempt any takedowns, which was kind of shocking to me because that's been like his entire game. And what he actually did, which shocked me, and I'm sure shocked a ton of people, was he actually went out there and outstruck George Hardwick for 15 minutes, who is a very good striker and a very dangerous striker at that. So not only can Al-Sawadi get fights down to the mat consistently, but he's a really good striker as well, and he showed that off in his Contender Series fights. So yeah, I think Al-Sawadi has a decent ceiling. The one concern with Al-Sawadi is when he does lose, he is getting knocked out, so maybe the chin's a question. But like I said, against George Hardwick, he was able to survive all 15 minutes against a very, very dangerous guy there. As far as Loik Rajabov, this is a guy who against Ribovics was able to take him down I think 10 times. On the feet, did get hurt a couple times, but solid wrestler in his own right. Against Mateusz Rebecki, it was a really brutal matchup for him. He was not able to get takedowns. He was forced to stand and strike with Rebecki, and it did not go out well. He hurt his leg in that fight, I think, and then Rebecki knocked him down the fight, and the ref said no more. So I think this is one of the closer line fights on the card. We have two fighters that are minus 200 or less. This is one of them. Al-Sawadi, you think, is hanging around minus 150, minus 160. Curious to your thoughts on this one, Weezy.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Loic Radzhabov has got a little more experience and a little more high-level experience, Brady. He's got 5 more professional fights, got about 90 more minutes of professional cage time, and in the same amount of time as a professional fighter. But, we've seen Loic Radzhabov fight for $1 million twice in PFL and, lose 5-round fights to Hausch Manfio, and I forget who the other one was to. Was it Schulte? Either way, so he's had some high-level fights. He's had some big money fights. When you look at Abdul Karim Al-Sawadi, you see a guy who's been fighting mostly in Brave, and then it seems like, so he was born in Louisiana, and I think he went to almost like high school, and then he moved to Jordan, and then he lived out there for a while, and then he was at the first ever Brave event, Brave 1, and he fought in the Brave promotion for a while, and then it looks like he moved to the United States, back to where he was originally from, and then now he's training over at Fortis MMA in Texas, and he's been fighting in Fury FC, and he had one fight in LFA. And dude, that Dana White Contender Series performance was phenomenal because, like you say, we were used to seeing this guy take people down and then pound their heads through the canvas. Good wrestling, good top control. But now you see a guy who showed really good lateral footwork, the ability to make his opponents miss and land big shots, and have the conditioning, Brady, to move. I mean, that kind of defensive movement, that kind of footwork, that lateral movement, the constant circling, that takes a very high level of energy output. And this guy didn't get tired. And Hardwick was pressuring him the entire fight, and he showed great defensive footwork, the ability to slip and rip in the pocket, great output, and the conditioning to push that for the full 15 minutes. Very impressive, because people who just watch that fight might not realize how much wrestling this dude has in his back pocket and how much he can make that a part of his output. But, this is a step up for Al-Sawadi here against Radzhabov, because Radzhabov's fought at a higher level for a longer period of time. Radzhabov is a very, very durable guy. He's only been finished once. And something seemed to be wrong in that Radzhabov fight. Did he not miss weight against Rebecki?
I can double check, but it sounds familiar, yeah.
I think he might have missed weight there. And this is not a guy who's been missing weight in his career, as far as I know.
He did. And he weighed in at 157.
Yeah, so I mean, I think he looked like trash on the scales, if my memory serves me correctly.
I think you're right.
And he just didn't perform well. So there could have been an injury. There could have been something going on in that camp. Also against Rybovics, he got that win in a really fun fight. But dude, how many takedowns did he attempt in that fight? I'm like almost 20, I think.
It's a ton.
It was a ton, and he got very tired as a result of that. This guy's got 21 takedowns attempted, Radzhabov, in 22 minutes of UFC cage time. So this guy is a very high volume wrestler. And if you wrestle that high volume, of course you're going to get exhausted. And he kind of had to do that against a wild man like Rybovics, who just on the feet is just throwing everything with power and just kind of staying in your face. So this is going to be an interesting matchup, because these guys are very, very much alike, Brady. They both can use their wrestling to win minutes, get their opponent down, land ground and pound, win minutes and moments on the ground, as Radzhabov is 5-0 to the submission in his career. Al-Sawadi 2-0 to the submission in his career. And then, on the feet, I think Radzhabov's a guy who, just because he likes to use his striking to set up his wrestling, he's very dangerous on the feet, because he just throws with reckless abandon and is looking to take your head off. And he's probably going to land some knockouts at this level, but he's not defensively responsible. And this could be a situation where if Loic is unable to get Abdul down, he could get picked apart from a distance for this entire fight, because Al-Sawadi showed great lateral movement, great conditioning, and great output and some power in his own right in his Dana White Contender Series fight against Hardwick. So I think that Al-Sawadi is probably a rightful favorite here, but do we want to lay minus 160 on a debutant against a more experienced guy in Rajabov who has a lot of the same qualities that Al-Sawadi has, but we've seen it against a higher level of competition and in 5-round fights, and this dude is durable.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to like who's going to win these wrestling exchanges, because I feel like Al-Sawadi is probably going to use his wrestling in reverse here, keep the fight standing, because I really do think it's one-way traffic on the feed. But yeah, maybe Rajabov is able to get him down. We'll have to see. But yeah, I do lean Al-Sawadi here myself. But what is he currently sitting at, around like minus 160? Yeah, I think slight favorite makes sense to me. Rajabov plus 140. The total set at 2.5, the over 2.5 minus 135, the under 2.5 plus 105. Like you said, Rajabov's extremely tough. Maybe could see a late finish. Any thoughts on the total?
I would lean over just because I think that both of these guys are very durable, and I don't think we want to put too much into Rajabov's most recent performance because I'm almost positive there was something wrong with him going into that fight. Also, we have to mention, Brady, we would be doing our viewers a disservice if we didn't mention that this guy Al-Sawadi was what, plus 350 to Hardwick?
Massive dog, yeah.
So you're now all of a sudden, if you're on the Al-Sawadi, I mean, like there were, sharp bettors who were, betting Hardwick up to minus 500 on Dana White's Contender Series against Al-Sawadi. So let's not overrate him from one performance here because it's a big swing in implied probability here.
Yeah, it was a weird fight because I watched a lot of tape on Al-Sawadi. I never saw him go out there and put on a striking clinic like he did in the Contender Series fight. I mean, that was very surprising to see. So, yeah, I like the guy. I think he probably does get it done. But this is a tough test. Rajabov is not bad at all. So, it should be a fun fight to watch. Don't know if I'm getting there. Our picks did not suck yet. Our picks did good. Gary, what are you talking about? It was a great night yesterday. I think he's talking.
I don't know who he's talking to, but who cares, man? I mean, if I'm up 7 point something units, I don't care if people say my picks suck.
Yeah, some guy said that he has been fading my picks the last 3 years. I don't know if you saw me post that. Some guy said he's fading my picks last night in the last 3 years.
I'm sure that's going really well for him.
Like, how can you fade me? Like, I do a lot of props. How can you fade a prop? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand.
Yeah, some people just like to talk. It's all right.
Yeah, it is what it is. All right, Weezy. So let's continue on. So the Oliveira fight. We talked about the Duncan fight. Okay, now we got the Matt Schnell, Steve Erceg fight here. A fight that, what do you think? Minus 200, Schnell pulling out? Because I was looking at Schnell's canceled bouts, and it is really close between him and Perez. Let's see. So he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, not as much as I think Perez is like 10 or 11. So still, 8 is a ton, man. So there's a good chance that Schnell does not show up. There's a good chance that there are some weigh-in shenanigans. But if this fight happens, I am looking forward to it. We got Matt Schnell, 34 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. Steve Erceg, 28 years old, 5'9" with a 69.5-inch reach. Erceg, 6 years younger, with a 1-inch height advantage and a 1/2-inch reach disadvantage. Matt Schnell is 2-1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Tyson Nam. No contest against Rogerio Bontorin. Submission loss to Brandon Royval. Submission win against Sumadarji. Knockout loss against Mateus Nicolau. Steve Erceg, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut on short notice against David Dvorak, and then beat Alessandro Costa by decision his last time out. I'm worried about Matt Schnell, man. Like, this is a guy who's just taken a ton of damage throughout his career. He's now 34 years old at this point. This is a guy, Matt Schnell, who is reaching like Shannon Ross, Malcolm Gordon, levels of in terms of durability issues. 6 finished losses in the flyweight division, and it was almost 7 in the Sumadarji fight. Like, another ref could have potentially stopped that Sumadarji Matt Schnell fight where Matt Schnell was out on his feet at least 3 or 4 times in that second round. So the durability of Matt Schnell really, really worries me. I think he's a good fighter. I think he's a really good grappler. I think his striking's came a long way. He can even win minutes in the striking. It's just one shot and, he can potentially, get dropped and finished. We saw in his last fight, Mateus Nicolau dropped him like 3 times. Sumidarji knocked him out like a million times, and then he was able to survive. Sumidarji gassed out. So, yeah, the durability of Matt Schnell really concerns me. And like I said, he might not even show up. He might not even show up today. But if he does, I like Steve Erceg here. I think the difference here for me is the massive durability advantage of Steve Erceg. And he's a good fighter. Like, this is a guy that his base is grappling, but he showed off some really good striking. And that David Dvorak fight looked really good in that fight striking. I think he hurt David Dvorak really badly in that second round, almost finished him there. The Alessandro Costa win is a very good win as well. I'm just not high on Matt Schnell at this point. I can't pick him to win. And like I said, I'm not even convinced he shows up as well. So I'm looking at Steve Erceg. One thing that I find interesting is they set the over-under at 1.5, which I think is kind of silly for a flyweight fight. But I do lean towards Steve Erceg at some point touching the chin. I think a gust of wind could knock out Matt Schnell at this point. And the thing with Steve Erceg is he can drop you, hurt you, and then submit you like we saw in the Royval fight for Schnell. Or he can potentially just knock out Matt Schnell as well. The durability of Matt Schnell is something I'll be fading this week if he does show up, which, again, I'm not sure if he does.
Yeah, that's we got to kind of wait until weigh-in day to know how this one's going to look, because just Matt Schnell has not been consistent in making that walk to the cage. 1 year and 2 months since we've even seen him in a fight. It'll be 1 year and 3 months by the time we get into the cage here. So, yeah, and with Erceg, you got a guy who's only 28 years old. He's got 12 fights. He's got 110 minutes in the cage, and he's been a lot more active recently than Schnell has. And I think you brought up one thing that's just extremely important to talk about with this matchup, Brady. It's the durability. This guy Erceg's got a chin on him. He's eating some clean shots. Matt Schnell does not have a chin on him. I mean, even in the Sumidarji fight, I mean, he showed good durability there. He fought his way through it, but that was the referee who let him do that. I mean, a lot of referees just wouldn't have let him fight his way through that and find that win. And if he doesn't, you're looking at 3 straight losses, a no contest to Bontarine, and then a split decision win over Tyson Nam before that. So, this is a rough sport, to get old in. And Schnell's 34 and is not showing any kind of durability in the cage. Also combined with the ability to just not make it to the cage on a lot of other occasions because of injuries, because of bad weight cuts, because of other circumstances. So, I'm leaning Erceg here as well. I think that the durability advantage on its own is enough to pick him, because outside of that, I don't think Erceg or Schnell is that much better of a grappler than one another at this point in their careers. I don't think either one of them is that much better of a striker at this point in their careers. But Erceg's more durable. Erceg's 5.5 years younger. And he's just at a different point in his career where a win right now for him, it could change his life. Well, a win for Schnell means, all right, well, we'll see you again in 2025, Matt, and then now you're going to be 36 years old. So, yeah, man, I'm going with Erceg here.
Yeah, I mean, it's I didn't realize that the line was this wide. Holy crap. So people are kind of thinking what I'm thinking in terms of fading the durability of Matt Schnell. Because you brought up a good point. Skill for skill, these guys probably aren't that far off at all. It's just the age, the durability is just a massive concern for Schnell, because he could be looking decent. One thing lands, a gust of wind comes through the apex, it's lights out. Steve Erceg minus 310 now. Matt Schnell plus 260. And like I said, they put the over-under at 1.5, which is kind of annoying. I'll be looking at maybe under 2.5 or like an Erceg inside the distance. I can see like a club and sub. But yeah, give me Erceg here as well. Is Schnell's durability worse than Witt or Ross? Probably not, but it's close. I mean, Schnell has 6 finished losses. Shannon Ross, I think, has like 4 or 5. Malcolm Gordon has like 7 or 8 though. So, but yeah, the durability is not great.
Yeah, I mean, he's in that club of guys that you say you really worry about their durability. Guys like Jordan Wright, Jason Witt, Shannon Ross, these guys that you just know, Malcolm Gordon, the guys that don't make it to the bell when they lose. And Schnell has only lost once by decision in his entire pro career, and he's got 7 professional losses.
Schnell is not. Maybe I'm wrong, guys. Maybe Schnell is durable. Maybe I'm overlooking the durability. Not my bad. Okay, guys. Matt Schnell is a very durable fighter. I think he's very durable and he has a great chin. And hopefully he does show up. All right. So we probably wasted too much time on that fight. It's not even happening. All right. We'll move on to the next fight. A fight that doesn't make a ton of sense. We got Umar Nurmagomedov going against Basharat Almakhan. We got Nurmagomedov, 28 years old, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. Bekzat, he is 26 years old, 5'7". We have Bekzat, he's 2 years younger. He's going to have a 1-inch reach disadvantage there. Nurmagomedov 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Obviously, he's undefeated, 16-0. Made his debut against Sergey Morozov, won that fight by submission. Beat Brian Kelleher by submission. Beat Nate Maness by decision, and then beat Heine Barcelos by first-round knockout. As far as Bekzat, he is making his debut here, and he is 14-1. And yeah, I went and taped this Bekzat guy, and I think he's really good. I think this guy honestly has a decent ceiling in the UFC. He's 14-1. The guy is only 26 years old, and he's really well-rounded. I think his striking is really good. He has a lot of power. I've seen him, get head kick knockouts, knock guys out. Good offensive wrestling, decent takedown defense, decent grappling, just a really good, well-rounded fighter. But the problem is, he's fighting Umar Nurmagomedov, who is also a very well-rounded fighter. And I think it's one of those cases where, yes, I think Bekzat's good everywhere. I just think Umar's better everywhere. Umar is going to be the better striker. He's going to be the better offensive wrestler. He's going to be the better grappler. He's fought the better competition. He's been in the UFC. So you got to favor Umar here. But, he's minus 1,000. If Umar's last name was like Johnson, like Umar Johnson, I think the line would be like more reasonable, like minus 300, minus 400 even, because like I said, Bekzat's not bad. I think he's really good. It's just he's going against Umar Nurmagomedov. So Umar should get it done. He's a minus 1,000 favorite, but you can't add a minus 1,000 favorite to your parlay. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, the last 5 opponents for Bekzat Almakhan are Jan Faraz, who? Mateus Rodriguez Gloria, who? Moro Mastro Marini, who? Chanilton Matos, who? Giovanni Vargas, who? And he's fighting in Octagon. It's a Central Asian promotion out of Kazakhstan mostly. So you can watch. There's one tape where this dude's in an octagon and they got rugs down. There's like they're nice looking rugs too. It's like something you would find in the living room of an upper middle class Central Asian family, But yeah, he's about to fight Umar Nurmagomedov, a guy who's the entire UFC is ducking this guy. It's gotten to the point where you have to go to Kazakhstan and pick out some 26-year-old kid with a 14-1 record and say, "Hey, kid, how would you like to be in the UFC?" And he'd say, "I'd love that." And they say, "Well, there's only one catch." And we know what that catch is. Your first fight is Umar Nurmagomedov. It's not going to go well for you. And then after that, we'll give you a very winnable fight and we'll see what you got. But yeah, is nobody taking Umar Nurmagomedov fights?
I don't know what's going on, man.
You know what else could be going on? This is what's scary, right? Is that Umar got hurt badly before the Sandhagen fight. Had to pull out of that fight. Did we hear what that injury was?
I'm not sure.
So neither am I. And now we're on an over 1 year layoff. And maybe the reason that he's fighting this kid is because Umar's camp is saying, yeah, nobody wants to fight us. Why don't you find us some Central Asian kid that you want to make their debut? Maybe Umar needs a tune-up fight because the injury that forced him out of the Sandhagen fight was relatively serious. That's a possibility here. But, this one is just screaming, stay away from me. Am I going to bet against Umar Nurmagomedov? Probably not. Not if I want to keep those units.
Wait, what about 10 units to win one, or less than one on some books? Actually, is minus like 1150 on some books, minus 1163, minus 1200, 12 units to win one, maybe.
I don't think so, man. My max bet is 5 units. So it's gonna be like 5 units to win 0.43.
Okay.
So no, probably not. And you know what? I mean, I saw the same thing on Almakhan. Kid's a good fighter.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this kid's no bum. I mean, he's explosive on the feet. He's 12-0 to the knockout in his career, 1-1 to the sub. So even though you see him wrestling, winning some minutes on the ground, where he's really good is with at distance striking range. He's kind of like a snake. He kind of like flashes into range. He's explosive. He's a pretty good fighter at only 26 years of age. But I mean, it's just and it's such a hard debut. I mean, nobody in the top 10 wants to fight Umar Nurmagomedov, and this is who you're going to make your debut against at the age of 26. That's a tough road to hoe. I'm telling you right now, Brady. I'm telling you right now, and our Stat Diggers audience, I like Umar Nurmagomedov to win this fight.
I do as well. Maybe a hot take, but I think he gets it done myself. What's kind of interesting is the total. They set it at 1.5. The over 1.5 got completely smashed. The over 1.5 actually opened up at plus 145. It's now minus 200. I could see Umar finishing this guy. I mean, I've seen Bekzat get dropped multiple times. I've seen him get submitted as well. Yeah, why can't Umar go out there and either knock this guy out or sub him? Like Umar knocked out Barcelos. Barcelos had an incredible performance last night. Submitted Brian Kelleher, submitted Sergey Morozov, who's really good as well. He didn't finish Nate Maness, but Maness is a tough guy. So maybe Umar finish could be interesting if it's a playable price, which maybe it might be considering this over is just getting crushed.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting because even though Umar, for as dominant as he is, Brady, he doesn't have a good finish rate as a professional. It's only 57%. He's only finished 9 of his 16 wins, you know? So it's like he's not like this, you know, lockdown finisher, but he seems to be the kind of guy who just kind of like he takes what his opponents give him. So if his opponents are a little bit aggressive and they make a mistake, he'll just finish you immediately. But if they want to be very defensive and cautious, he'll just win the minutes up until the fight's over. So it doesn't really seem to matter to Umar. He's going to win either way, you know? So that's what you got to worry about, is that he might take his time if you bet that under. But man, if this kid Almakhan makes one mistake in that first 7.5 minutes, Umar's going to finish him.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, we'll see where the props open up at. But yeah, I think the minus 1,000 favorite gets it done.
Yeah, I'm with you, dude. You know, I think you heard it here first. You know, Uncle Weezy likes Umar to win.
All right, Weezy, we'll move on. I mean, I really don't want to talk. I mean, this fight could be awful, man. We got Eryk Anders going against Jamie Pickett. I think the matchmakers came together and were like, let's make the worst matchup possible, like the most cage pushy, grindy, not a lot's going to happen fight possible. And it's Eryk Anders versus Jamie Pickett. We got Eryk Anders now 36, almost 37 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. Jamie Pickett, 35 years old, 6'2" with an 80-inch reach. Pickett 1 year younger, 1 inch height advantage, and a 5-inch reach advantage. Eryk Anders is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Darren Stewart. Submission loss to Andre Muniz. Decision loss to Jung Young Park. Knockout win against Kyle Dawkins. And then a decision win against Marc-Andre Barrio. For Jamie Pickett, he's 1-4 in his last 5 fights. A decision win against Joseph Holmes. Submission loss to Kyle Dawkins. Knockout loss to Dennis Tuolumne. Submission loss to Bo Nickel. Decision loss to Josh Frem. Like, you know, I personally don't count that Joseph Uglyman Holmes win. So personally, I think Jamie Pickett's 0-5 in his last 5 fights because a win against Joseph Holmes, that does not count. Yeah, for me, it's Eryk Anders. Like I can't pick Jamie Pickett in a fight. I mean, if you're losing to Dennis Tuolumne and Dennis Tuolumne, like something seriously up, should be Anders here, but Anders is minus 340. Like, how can you trust Anders at minus 340? But yeah, he should win the fight wherever it goes. On the feet, higher volume, more power. This is a guy, Anders, who can wrestle, who can push fights against the cage. It's hard to envision a Jamie Pickett win. Like that's where I'm kind of struggling. So yeah, it's Anders for me, but minus 340. No, thank you. I'm going to sit this one out. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight here?
I can't picture a Jamie Pickett win.
Same.
I just can't, you know. Eryk might be a guy that slows things down and win minutes on the cage and just kind of wear on people there. And Pickett does that too when he's got the ability to do that. But I mean, like, Eryk's stronger than Jamie. He's obviously the better athlete. He hits harder than this guy. He's faced the better brand of competition. He's beaten the better brand of competition. He's better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He hits harder on the feet. And if you look at just like, for instance, grappling efficiency numbers, Anders is much more active with the offensive wrestling. He's very good at defending takedowns. He's winning 75% of the control time positions in his fights, while Jamie Pickett's only winning 28%. And when you look at the efficiency ratings, in terms of what percentage of the takedowns do they get in their fights, what percentage of the takedown attempts do they get in their fights, and you compare that to the control time that they're winning, Anders is plus efficiency and Pickett's negative efficiency. So, I mean, I think like Anders is going to win this fight wherever it goes. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to lay minus 340 on Eryk Anders in a UFC fight, but I think he's gonna probably look that. You're probably gonna finish this fight going, yeah, that's a 30-27, and I don't think Jamie won 1 minute of that fight. He could clip him, I suppose. I mean, it's MMA. Anything can happen, but come on, man. I think Eryk Anders is going to win this fight, and he's probably going to get a finish too.
I don't know about a finish, maybe. I mean, he did finish Dawkins. He did finish Vinicius Moreira. He did finish Tim Williams. Yeah, maybe he could. I mean, Pickett gets finished a ton, so potentially.
Yeah, I mean, Pickett got finished by Dennis Teolulin.
Oh, I mean, the problem is the urgency for Anders. He seems to have zero urgency.
Yeah, but God, he is just a huge individual. I mean, Eryk Anders, I don't know how the hell that guy makes 185. It's kind of crazy that he does. He's just huge. So I think, I think there's just a lot of things favoring Anders in this spot. I guess I get why the line is this wide. I mean, am I going to get involved though? I mean, probably no, I'm not getting involved. I'm just saying that right now. I'm not.
Let's see.
Send the orderlies for me if I get involved on this fight, Brady.
Yeah, Anders open at minus 250 is currently minus 340, and Jamie Pickett's plus 280. Yeah, I'd be shocked if anybody's taking Pickett this week. It's hard to make it like usually you can make a case for many fighters, a lot of dogs. It's hard to imagine a Jamie Pickett win. Like I don't know what it looks like. I think it had to be like a cage pushy, like robbery, Chris Lee type decision for Jamie Pickett to win.
Yeah, it could be like Anders sprains his ankle jumping around before the fight starts, and then is just on one leg for the fight and he loses. I could see that.
Oh, we do actually have somebody on Pickett. Pickett by decision, says Green Light. I think that's what it had. It had to be like a robbery. The judges fell asleep during the fight type decision for him to win.
Yeah,
and yep. Go ahead.
I was, I mean, Pickett's 2-2 in decisions in the UFC, and Anders is 3-6. So maybe that's how he does it. Maybe that's how Pickett actually does win this fight, is by decision. But it's. I think Anders wins this one probably 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll move on to a fight that may or may not happen. It's because it's an Alex Perez fight, and we touched on how many times a Schnell fight has been canceled, which was 8. I believe I said it was 8. Let's count Alex Perez. Weezy, over under 10 fights canceled in the UFC for Alex Perez. Over under 10.
I'm going to go under. I'm going to say 9-ish. That's what my guess is going to be.
Let's count. Manel Kopp 1, Kai Kara-France 2, Amir Albazi 3, Askar Askarov 4, Matt Schnell 5, Matt Schnell 6, Matt Schnell 7, Askar Askarov 8, Matt Schnell 9, Brandon Moreno 10, Kai Kara-France 11, Sergio Pettis 12.
Wow. And it looks like there was even a Dana White's Contender Series fight that was canceled.
So 13, if you want to count the WCS, yes, 13.
But I think Chad George pulled out of that fight. So it's something, I don't know. Wow, 12 canceled fights. That is absolutely phenomenal. It really is.
It is. So this fight may not happen, but if it does, we got Muhammad Mokaev, who is 23 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. Perez, 31 years old, 5'6" with a 65-inch reach. Mokaev is going to be 8 years younger, 1-inch height advantage, a 5-inch reach advantage. Perez is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Mark De La Rosa. Submission win against Jordan Espinoza. Knockout win against Jussier Formiga. Submission loss to Davison Figueiredo and Alexander Pantoja. As far as Mokaev, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He's undefeated. It made his debut against, it was Cody Durden, won that fight by first round sub. Beat Charles Johnson by decision, and then submitted Malcolm Gordon, Jafel Filio, and Tim Elliott, all 3 of those in the 3rd round. It's kind of crazy with Alex Perez, man. This was a guy that fought for a title. He fought for a title against Davison Figueiredo, and that fight at this point was a very long time ago, back in 2020. And since then, he has one fight that lasted 1 minute and 31 seconds. So like the last 4 years, this guy has a couple minutes of cage time in there. So I really question, the mindset of Perez. Does he still want to do this? Like all these canceled bouts, is there injuries? Like what's going on with Alex Perez? He hasn't been making it to the cage. And when he has been making it to the cage, Weezy, the fights end very shortly after. So it's one of those fights where, if this fight was a couple years ago and Perez, was coming off of that amazing, he beat the brakes off of Jussier Formiga. He submitted Jordan Espinoza. He had some really impressive performances. I liked Perez. It's just, at this point, you got to go with the much younger Mokaev. This is a guy, Mokaev, who is 100% taking this serious. He's 100% wants to be here. He's improving each and every time. He's going to make it to the cage. So, you got to go Mokaev here. And I think he probably finishes Alex Perez, who's been finished 5-6 times. So, Mokaev for me, and Mokaev inside the distance. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight if it does happen?
Yeah, if it does happen, I like Mokaev here. The guy's ability to be able to wrestle at a high pace for 15 full minutes. There's no fucking way that we can expect Alex Perez, who's fought once in the last 3 years, really the last 4 or 5 years of his career, he's got about 5 minutes of cage time. And against Mokaev, a guy who attempted 27 takedowns against Charles Johnson, took him down. I don't even know how many times in that fight and controlled him for 13 and a half minutes out of 15. If there's anything that Mokaev doesn't like about what's coming his way offensively on the Perez side, he can shoot in on a takedown and start wrestling here and drag Alex Perez to a place where he's going to be very uncomfortable. And first of all, that would be dragging him actually into the cage to fight. That would be the most uncomfortable that you could make Alex Perez. But then once you get him into that cage, if you kind of, start to make this dude fight, he doesn't look like he wants to be there. And that becomes pretty obvious in this sport, Brady. You're either all the way in or you're getting served. There's really no in between. You can't half-ass this. Look at a guy like Conor McGregor. He's never going to make it back to the cage. He's a billionaire. He doesn't need this shit. Alex Perez, he's got a juice bar, Brady. He doesn't need this shit. When you got a juice bar and you're selling acai bowls and smoothies to a bunch of, yuppies in California, and they're paying you $12 for a smoothie that costs you $1 to make, do you really need to get into the cage and get and sniff crotch against Mokaev for look at the acai republic. Look at even the cops. Even the cops are there, the cops are like, you know what? We don't need donuts. We got really good juice over here at Perez. It's healthy for us. We're sleeping better. We're in great shape. Yeah, dude, the guy's doing pretty well, man. Fighting is a very, very difficult occupation. And, you're either all the way in or all the way out. And right now it looks like Perez is not all the way in. And with Mokaev, what are we going to question anything about this kid right now? He got his leg bent the wrong way by a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Not only did he not tap to that knee bar, but then he got up, put weight on that leg, and then found a way to get a takedown of his own and choke the dude out in the last 30 seconds of the fight. Perez has maybe got a chance to win this in round number 1. He just goes ham, just comes out there and looks uncomfortable and wants to get in and out of that cage as fast as possible, throws a giant flying knee, something like that. But I think that this fight's going to finish in the very first round, Brady. Plus 125 for the under 2.5 is a play that I like. but I'd rather get much bigger plus money for an under 1.5 or a fight doesn't start round 2 here, because Alex Perez doesn't get out of the first round very often at all. And I think Mokaev is exactly the kind of guy who could show him the door very quickly, or at least provide the kind of pace where somebody winds up getting served in the first 5 minutes of this fight. But I like Mokaev quite a bit here.
Yeah, me too. The weird thing though is like nobody's really ever taking down Alex Perez, like ever. I think only twice somebody's taken him down. Nobody's ever really controlling him either. When he is losing, it is to like really good guys: Alexander Pantoja, Davison Figueiredo, Joseph Benavidez. So if Muhammad Mokaev does go out there and take him down multiple times, he probably would be the first one to do it. And I am leaning that way. It's just the motivation factor is kind of a huge thing for me. But what I will say, if we got the best version of Alex Perez, like the best version of him, I think he would be live at this number. I just don't think that version exists anymore. I mean, the last time this guy won a fight was what, 4 or 5 years ago at this point? It's been a long time.
Yeah, and against who? Was it a 40-year-old Formiga? Was that his last win, or was it Jordan Espinoza or the Bumblebee Mark De La Rosa before that? I mean, like, I think the last time this guy went 15 minutes was against Mark De La Rosa.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So I mean, what happens when the first round ends? I mean, like, if it even gets that far, you got to believe that Perez might be like, what am I still doing here?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, if you bet the under and Perez does not show up, does that under hit? Because technically it did go under.
Yeah, man, I don't think it does. That's the problem. Otherwise, I think it'd be minus 175 right now for the under 2.5 rounds.
Weezy, what about a fight won't start round 1? Minus 150. Fight won't start round 1. The fight won't even start. Minus 150. What do you think?
Can you imagine how crushing that would be to see as a professional athlete, where like the books are even saying before the fight even starts, this guy is not even showing up? That would be so disrespectful to the artists, to these fighters. I mean, like, it would probably be juiced up to minus 200.
Did you just say juice?
Yeah, I'd say it would be juiced. And I did.
Shout out to Alex Perez opening up that juice bar. I love it, dude. I might have to go check it out one of these days.
Let's go, man. Southern California. I'm sure he's doing just fine, right?
100%. 100%. So, I mean, there's a really good chance that either the Alex Perez fight or the Schnell fight does not happen. Like a really good chance. One of those two are off the card.
And we're already down to 9 fights as it is. So this is a precarious card, ladies and gentlemen.
I feel like we just started the show and we're at the co-main event.
Yeah, I know. We'll take it.
All right. We'll take it. All right, here we go. Co-main event. Vitor Petrino going against Tyson Pedro. We got Petrino, 26 years old, 6'2" with a 77-inch reach. Pedro, 32 years old, 6'3" with a 79-inch reach. We got Petrino, who is 6 years younger. He's going to have a 1-inch height disadvantage and a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Petrino 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout win against Rodolfo Bellato on the Contender Series. Beat Anton Turkalj by decision. Beat Marcin Prachnio by 3rd-round submission. Beat Modestas Bukauskas by 2nd-round knockout. As far as Pedro, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Knockout loss to Shogun. A knockout win against Ike Villanueva. Knockout win against Harry Hunsucker. A decision loss to Modestas Bukauskas. Then a knockout win against Anton Turkalj. Yeah, should be a really fun fight here, Weezy. These guys are both extremely dangerous, and I've been really impressed with Vitor Petrino. This guy's only 26 years old, and he's showing like new wrinkles every time this guy fights. Like, it all started with that Anton Turkalj fight where he went out there and completed like 6 takedowns, was doing really well in the grappling. I'm like, I haven't seen this from the guy. I'm used to seeing this guy taking guys' heads off, but no, the guy can wrestle as well. And then, we found out that this guy can get submissions when he submitted Marcin Prachnio in the 3rd round. And then, of course, he flashed that power right back in his next fight against Modestas Bukauskas. So this guy's extremely well-rounded, as is Tyson Pedro, though. Pedro has a ton of power in his own right. Pedro's a BJJ black belt as well. I think this is a very fun fight and definitely worthy of this co-main event slot.
Agreed. And it's wild to see Petrino be this big of a favorite. But, there's a lot of questions on the Tyson Pedro side right now. And I think that's where this line is kind of stemming from, Brady, because we know some things about Pedro. He came into the UFC at only 4-0, right? he was completely untested, but he had grown up, you know, kind of like in a martial arts family. I think his dad owned a promotion there in Australia, the King of the Cage or something like that in Australia. So he was always around high level fighters. Came into the UFC at 4-0, gets a win over Khalil Roundtree, gets a win over Paul Craig, beats Saperbeg Safarov, and people are like, damn, now this guy's 7-0. He's got 3 wins in the UFC, and they're all first round finishes. And it looks like, all right, we got something here. And then they give him Ilir Latifi, you know, and Latifi just wrestles him for 3 rounds and beats him easily. And then I think he got a win against somebody, I forget who, but then he puts back-to-back losses together against Ovin St. Preux, and then he lost to Mauricio Shogun Hua in the year of our Lord 2018, you know, which was a few years past Shogun when he was any good at all. So he takes 3 years off. He gets his ACL reconstructed. The doctors mess up the surgery and put the tendon through the wrong hole in the kneecap. So then he has to get that refixed. He's away for 3 years. Gets a win over Ike Villanueva. Gets a win over Harry Hunsucker. And then he goes out there and he loses to Modestas Bukauskas. Now, he said he was sick. And that's why he said he lost that fight. And I mean, I'm not even sure that he did lose that fight. You know, I mean, it wasn't like Modestas was whooping his ass or anything like that. It was just that Tyson didn't do anything. And in the second and the third round, there was so little done by both guys that they wound up giving the second and the third to Modestas, and he won that decision. But then, you know, he comes and he knocks out a guy in Turkali who's about as durable as it gets. You know, and he stuns him with a jab and then finishes up. This guy's been training now, Pedro, at City Kickboxing for the last 4 fights. He's been there since before the Villanueva fight. So the kickboxing looks to be getting a little bit better. But I think what the biggest difference between these two guys right now, Brady, is, first of all, obviously, Petrino's 6 years younger. So we love that. But second of all, I mean, if we're going to talk conditioning, if we're going to talk durability, if we're going to talk heart, those are 3 things that Vitor Petrino has, and those are three things that Tyson Pedro has never demonstrated. Pedro's never demonstrated durability, he's never demonstrated heart, and he's never demonstrated that dog in him. If he doesn't win in round number 1, he's never won a fight that's gotten to the 5-minute and 1 second mark. What does that tell you? Yeah. You know, when you're going out there and you're losing rounds 2 and 3 to a guy like Modestas Bukauskas, who's about as undangerous of a light heavyweight as there is in this promotion, I don't know, man. I see why Petrino's a big favorite here. You're getting the younger guy. You're probably getting the more powerful striker. I mean, like, the guy just looks like he could punch a hole through a wall. You know, Vitor Petrino is a freak. He's a physical freak. He's got conditioning that men his size should not be able to be having. I mean, the fact that this guy wrestled for 3 rounds against Turkali and didn't get tired and took him down several times. And there were a lot of reverses, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of takedowns from both guys in that fight. His ability to be able to push a pace for 15 full minutes and be durable and have good output and have good heart, I think is what sets him apart from Pedro here. But when you just look at it on a pure technical level, both these guys are damn good. You know, I just think that Petrino's the more powerful guy right now. He's the better wrestler right now. And then when we talked about the durability and the heart and all that stuff. So I got to go with Petrino here. But Pedro at plus 250, he's live. And I'd like to see what that first round prop is at. Because if you can get, Pedro round 1, which has been 100% of his win condition, at 600, 700 potentially, that might be something you could take a little sprinkle on.
Weezy.
What?
I don't think you're getting 600. Remember Bet Online last week? They had Daniel Lacerda. The first round prop was, what was it? This about the same as the money line?
So the money line was plus 340, and the first round prop was plus 350. which means that the round 2 prop should have been plus 50,000, because like there's literally no implied probability left for the rest of the props, so like it would be cool if you could get that, I'd be like, all right, I'll take Lacerda round 2 at plus 5,000. Why not? But they don't price it that way. They cheat you on the round 2 props while saying round 1 is 99% of his win condition.
Yeah, so we'll see where they open up that round prop. But I agree. Like, Pedro's 0-3 in fights that reached the second round. That's extremely concerning.
Yeah, that is extremely concerning, especially since we saw Petrino like get, he's finishing Praknio in the third round.
Mm-hmm.
He's having a great finish to the fight against Turkali, which was a back and forth war. And he's knocking out Bukauskas in the second round. He's knocking out Bellato in the second round. So we're seeing this guy who has 15 minutes fight a guy who's got 5 minutes. And I think that's why he's such a huge favorite.
Yeah, he's minus 300. Pedro is plus 250. The over-under set at 1.5. Kind of a tricky total. Like the under 1.5 is juiced to minus 150. The over 1.5 is plus 120. I'm probably staying away from this fight, to be honest, unless maybe a big plus money number on that Pedro round 1, because I think that's his win condition. But even then, I'm not too excited about that, to be honest. Any thoughts on the total?
I would lean under. It's a Petrino fight. The way that these guys hit, man, I mean, they both hit hard. So, and, they both got good submission games too. So I would lean under, but we're about to talk about a fight, Brady, that I think is a better under bet than this one.
Yeah. 100%. All right. It is time for the main event. Before we get into, if you guys have not already, be sure to smash that like button. Subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. We go live every Sunday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern time, unless the Super Bowl's happening, and then we move it to Monday. So as long as the Super Bowl's not happening, we will be here on Sunday. All right. We have a weird main event. Shamil Gaziev versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. We got Shamil Gaziev, who literally just made his debut, just fought on the Contender Series not even a year ago, I don't think, against Greg Velasco, and now he's headlining a card going against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. We'll start with Rozenstruik. He's 35 years old, 6'2" with a 78-inch reach. Gaziev, 34 years old, 6'4" with a 78-inch reach. Gaziev 1 year younger, 2-inch height advantage, same reach there. Rozenstruik is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Augusto Sakai. Decision loss to Curtis Blades, knockout loss to Alexander Volkov, knockout win against Chris Daukaus, and a submission loss to Jailton Almeida. As far as Gaziev, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He's undefeated. He had that submission win against Greg Velasco on the Contender Series, and then he just beat the brakes off of Martin Budai, finished him early in the second round. This is a fight where it's just hard to have a strong read on who the heck wins this fight. At the end of the day, these are two heavyweights that hit very, very hard. And I think these guys are probably going to stand and bang. Gaziev's probably going to come forward. He's probably going to pressure Rozenstruik. He's probably going to draw the fight out of Rozenstruik. And both these guys just have fight-ending power. So I think this fight probably finishes in the first round, but it's just, who lands that big shot first. If this fight does, for some reason, get extended, obviously you got to favor Rozenstruik. This is a guy that has a 5th-round knockout. This is a guy that's been 25 minutes. But I don't think it's going that long. The under is juiced to like minus 180. Weezy, fun fight here. Kind of a tough fight to pick a side on, in my opinion. What are you thinking about for this fight here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm picking Rozenstruik just because he's more experienced. He's fought the much better brand of guys. He's been here for a long time. I mean, it's hard to know what the win over Budai means for Gaziev, but I mean, it was a very impressive performance. He came out and just like he disrespected Budai and put it on him from the word go and just beat 7 shades of shit out of him. So, and Gaziev can wrestle too. That's another thing, I mean, we didn't even see that really in the Budai fight, but this guy can take you down and wear you out on the ground, but not great conditioning, man. And the one thing that, you got to be really careful of if you're going to be fighting Rozenstruik is like, if you bring pressure to Rozenstruik, you give him what he needs in order to land the big shots. Rozenstruik's a counter puncher. So, this could be a situation where Gaziev could try to drag this out. He could decide, maybe I want to try to wrestle early here, maybe try to tire him out, and then maybe I'll get the knockout on the feet, or maybe I just want to not even mess around with Rozenstruik's stand-up and just get him down to the ground and finish the fight early there. But if Gaziev tries to strike against Rozenstruik like he did against Budaj, just be aggressive, putting combinations together, dude, somebody's getting knocked out here in the first minute or two, because Rozenstruik's like sleeping people with jabs. I mean, and the thing about Rozenstruik is that he kind of uses that jab to set up everything else that he does. With Gaziev, he's getting another orthodox fighter. So you want to see, if you got a guy with a good jab, you want it to be orthodox versus orthodox or southpaw versus southpaw, so that jab can be a featured weapon of theirs. And whenever Jairzinho can set up that jab, everything else comes off of that, but his power is just next level. We're talking about a guy with, a 3.47 knockdown percent at distance. Those are big numbers. That's 7 knockdowns in 12 fights for Rozenstruik and 7 knockout wins in the UFC. 100% of his wins do come by knockout at the UFC level for Rozenstruik. So this guy is a guy that you just don't want to fuck around with in the pocket. You need to find other ways to beat this guy. You need to do what Cyril Gane did, which was just kind of dance around and outpoint him. Or you got to take him down and wear him out. Or you just got to be the one that's quicker to the chin if you are going to be in the pocket in exchange with him, kind of like what Volkov did to him. Volkov knocked him out, So I don't know if Gaziev's the kind of finisher that has beaten Rozenstruik in the past, which by what I mean by that is either a really good submission grappler or a guy who's just the better striker. I don't think he's either. So I think Jairzinho Rozenstruik's going to win this fight and win it by first round knockout.
Yeah, I mean, Rozenstruik's losing to really good fighters. Francis Ngannou, that guy's pretty good, right? Cyril Gane, that guy's pretty good. Curtis Blades is pretty good.
He is.
Volkov's pretty good.
Yeah, Volkov's pretty good. 10-4 in the UFC. I'd say he's pretty good.
And I know people are pretty upset with Jailton Almeida after the mounting of Derek Lewis for 25 minutes, but Jailton Almeida is pretty good as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, you add up the records of the guys who have beaten Jairzinho Rozenstruik at the UFC level, 50 wins, 12 losses, Brady.
That's crazy. That's ridiculous.
You have to be elite to beat this guy, and Jairzinho absolutely has elite power. So with Gaziev being a guy who we can't really count on to go more than 7.5 minutes, the gas tank is not great, although it looked great against Budaj. He didn't get tired, and he just and like that was a ton of pace. Dude, Gaziev attempted 22.14 distance strike attempts per minute. So that was a high pace that he put on for 5.93 minutes. But dude, if that fight went another minute and a half, I don't know how much Gaziev would have had left in the tank. Not that Budaj would have had much either, because Budaj absorbed a ton of damage.
That was a beating. That was an absolute beating.
It really was.
This is a massive step up from Martin Budaj and Greg Velasco. I'll say that, but it's a heavyweight fight. I mean, he could easily go out there and knock out Rozenstruik, so it's hard to be confident on one side, is what I'm kind of saying here. But yeah, Rozenstruik at plus money is kind of interesting, all things considered. He's fought the much better competition, and it's not even remotely close.
Agreed. That's a big point of contention in any capping that you're going to do is, who's fought the better guys, and that's a big advantage when you've been in there against the higher level of competition. But Gaziev looks the part, Brady. I mean, like, the wrestling is there, the power is there on the feet, the aggression is there. He's 34 years old, and he's got good size for the division at 6'4" with a 78-inch reach. So, and they're still, by the way, listing Rozenstruik at 6'2".
I mean, he's 5'6", right?
I mean, come on, dude. What the hell? I mean, who do they take us for, Brady? We know that he's not 6'2".
No, he's 5'5".
I mean, come on. He's 5'4.5".
Yeah,
I mean, what is 5'2.5" guy going out there saying he's 6'2"? It's bullshit.
We'll see at the weigh-ins. He's 5'1".
No, man. I mean, come on, dude. He makes like Snooki on Jersey Shore look like a giant. So I don't know what the hell they're trying to pull off on us here. But yeah, great main event. This was supposed to be in Saudi Arabia, so I think that's why Gaziev got the headlining spot, being a Bahraini trained fighter and all that. But let's see what he's got in a 5-round fight against a very powerful striker in Rozenstruik.
5-round fight. He's 5 foot. I like it. So yeah, this card, man. Right now we have 9 confirmed fights. I'm sure we'll get some news, but we lost Joel Álvarez, Ľudovít Klein. How awesome would that fight would have been? We lost Muhammad Yahya, Brandon Marat. Good. I'm glad that's off. We lost Julia Palashri going against Josephine Knudsen. You were looking forward to that fight. We lost Gamori. There's strong rumors that he's out of the fight. Oliveira is looking for a new opponent. We don't know if Ricky Turcios is going to fight Raul Rosas Jr. Judging by his Instagram, it doesn't really seem like it. It sounds like Ricky Turcios has already claimed the win. He was enjoying a nice Coca-Cola, talking crap, saying he beat Raul Rosas Jr. So yeah, 9 fights. Well, we'll see what happens throughout the week, but I don't know. They better get going, because we're probably going to lose Matt Schnell and Alex Perez along the way.
Right now, I mean, can you imagine if you were like Mokaev's coach? You'd be like, "All right, dude, we're right now we're preparing for whoever Schnell pulls out against." I already forgot who he's fighting. Erceg. We'd be like, Erceg is going to be fighting Mokaev. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. There was a comment I wanted to. No, Shamil is all of 6'4". Shamil is huge. We're saying Rozenstruik's 4 feet 11. Rozenstruik's very, very small. At least he's not.
Dude, Shamil was a big time volleyball player in Dagestan. I mean, he's a good athlete, dude. Like, he's 6'4" for real. He's a big heavyweight.
Yeah, what was the stuff on Turcios' shot? I don't know what it was, but it was bad. I don't know if it was staph or what, but it was bad. Let's see. Because he has a clear path to victory, Rozenstruik is pretty bad off his back. The question, or the concern I would have, is if Gaziev does wrestle and he doesn't finish Rozenstruik, what's his cardio going to look like in the second round? I mean, that could be a massive concern if he's wrestling and he can't get him out of there early.
Exactly, because this guy is not known for his gas tank. No, most heavyweights aren't. It's not like Gaziev's in a class of his own of being somebody who's going to get tired as a heavyweight. They all get tired. It's just some people have better cardio than others, and we've seen Rozenstruik like remove a man's lips from his face, 24 minutes and 56 seconds into a fight. So the guy carries his power late.
Yeah, Jeff liking the over. Jeff, it would be the sweatiest over of sweaty.
I like the under, man. I like the under. I mean, that would be a sweaty over, and if you hit it, you might have to take that money that you won and pay for your bypass surgery.
He's very sweaty. If you do bet the over, probably don't watch it, because it'll be very sweaty. All right. I think we did it, Weezy. Not much else to talk about. We only had 9 fights to talk about. Could be 7 by the time Saturday rolls around. Matt Schnell probably pulling out. Not sure if Alex Perez maybe can get off work at the juice bar and maybe show up. I'm not sure. But, yeah, it's a very intriguing card. Fun fights. Massive favorite. Not a ton of spots sticking out, Weezy. But any final thoughts on the card for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be fun fights. However many we end up with, I think they're going to be fun stylistic matchups, fun fights to watch. But you and I both coming off of really good weeks last week. Bankroll management's important every single week. But when we get cards like this, 7 out of the 9 fights have a favorite that's minus 200 or higher in implied probability. It screams, tread lightly, be careful, protect your bankroll. And we got UFC 299, which is just an incredibly stacked card 2 weeks from now, where we can kind of unload the clip and go a lot heavier.
Yeah, I mean, I already taped this whole card. Obviously, didn't take long. I got most of the fights done yesterday. I might just start moving on to 299, get ahead on some line movement next week. Because, yeah, not much is sticking out. There is a spot I love for this card, and I'll be attacking that heavily. Maybe 2 spots for this card. Might be just be one of those where I just attack my 2 favorite spots and just leave Eryk Anders alone. Like, leave some of the leave Umar minus 1,000 alone. Just watch these fights and just really pick my spots this week. And Sigma saying having Schnell and Perez on this card is a very risky move. Yeah, it is 100%. It is. But All right, Weezy. So, any plans for some content? You talked about maybe not skipping content for this card. Or are you gonna? What are you thinking?
No, I started doing the tape for it, and the stats are out. I almost forgot to get my stats out this week. I can't believe it. I had to get reminded by one of my Patreon members that, hey, thanks for getting the UFC 299 stats out 2 weeks in advance. That's awesome. How about next week? And I'm like, I was gonna be like, dumbass, I already got that out. And I'm like, oh, wait a second. I completely neglected to do these stats until yesterday. So yeah, I'm going to try to find, one or two spots where I can make a unit or two on this card and then move on, stack another win on top of last week's win. But if nothing sticks out, Brady, I mean, there's no reason to force it. So, but yeah, usual content, Brady. Tuesday night, Just a Tip. Wednesday night, Ask Weezy. We'll also do the DFS show like we do every Wednesday right here on Pub Sports Radio, 8 o'clock Central Time. And let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 87.
Dixon saying, great week for parlays. What could go wrong? Weezy, riddle me this. Can I interest you in a Umar Nurmagomedov, Javid Basharat, and Eryk Anders parlay minus 157?
Oh my God, minus 157, 1.5 units to win one. And you got to hit all three. And I mean, we just saw Eric Silva sprain his ankle 10 seconds into a fight after getting his foot caught in between the cage and the mat. That could happen to Umar. That could happen to Anders. There could be some weird judging. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Dixon knows what could possibly go wrong. That's why he's saying it. I take it back.
I know.
We know he was kidding. We know he was kidding.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I mean, just Umar and Basharat parlay together. It's like minus 250. I mean, it's crazy. Chalky week. And it's only Sunday. Like, it's only going to get worse. Like, people are going to be parlaying up these fighters. So, yeah, it might be a good card to stay light. You kind of got to on 9 fights. There's not much to pick from.
Agreed, man. We can protect our bankrolls this week and enjoy what should be some pretty fun fights to watch.
Heck yeah. So, yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Be on the lookout for my content. I'll be putting up my full card breakdown tomorrow. I'm probably going to do a main event breakdown as well tomorrow morning, so be on the lookout for that, and just the usual content also. Leave a like on your way out, subscribe here to Pub Sports, and best of luck, everybody, for UFC Vegas 87, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. Enjoy your acai bowls, and we'll talk to you very soon. See you guys.